It's time to finally talk horse racing this week on Prime Sports Network. So instead of a Monday show and a Friday show or a Thursday night show, we kind of balanced it with one big Wednesday show. And that means Chad Summers is joining Jon Hardoon as we preview the Belmont Stakes on this edition of the PlaybookSports.com Horse Report. How's it going, fellas?
Very good.
Chadwick?
It is the talk of the town is that everyone is at Belmont, although very few horses seem to have arrived.
Okay. Why is that?
That's a good question. It seems to be the $1 million question. There was a tweet that came out today, actually, that was very interesting, though. They said the full crop in 2003, so this is 19 years ago, was 32,000. And now it's something around 19,000. So it's an 11,000 less horses that are born in 2019 than were born in 2003. So it's interesting. I mean, that is a lot. It's a big number.
It's 30%. That's 30%.
Yeah, I think there are things that need to be addressed, and unfortunately, inside the industry, we've chosen to kind of turn a blind eye to it for a long time, and maybe this will be a wake-up call. Maybe this will be a needed wake-up call, and if that's the case, then I'm all for it. But it's one of those things, and we'll talk about these races that have some larger fields. But the races we're not going to talk about, you're talking about 3 or 4, 5 with field sizes, which is as a bettor, and you know better than me, Jonathan, but as a bettor, is very disappointing.
You can't bet those races. You can only watch them. There's no way to bet them. It's ridiculous. The first thing they should do, in my opinion, is bring back Lasix, because the cheaters that are going to cheat whether they're using Lasix or not. So by that taking away Lasix, they already lost a percentage. I'm not saying a big percentage, but certainly the difference between 5-horse fields and 7-horse fields, which is a difference if you're betting. So that's the first thing I would do, is bring back Lasix. The second thing I would do is have somebody try to coordinate races. Last week, for example, on Friday night, they had a race at Penn National on the grass for $400,000, where they had a field of 6. The Saturday, right after that, 24 hours later, they had a race similar to that race at Belmont for $200,000, where they also got a field of 6. Why run the races against each other? You're only hurting your own business. Somebody's got to figure out, they need to get a commissioner, somebody that figures out not to run these stakes on top of each other where they're diluting the fields. That's my opinion, and
what's their reason?
That's the way I don't know. Ask Chad.
Well, I mean, that's been the problem for years, is that there's no reasoning, because there's nobody, to Jonathan's point, there's nobody in charge, right? So everybody has forever just done their own thing. Right, we have, the national, the NTRA and the Jockey Club and things like that, but nobody actually ever gets involved in anybody's business. And so every track has their own schedule, their own people. There's no kind of working together to make a plan that best benefits everybody. And it does dilute the limited population that there is in the first place. And look, a lot of things have to change, and we'll talk next week about HISA and the impact that's going to have on horse racing moving forward. But that's more of a safety drug enforcement initiative than it is about actually helping the races and figuring out a way to kind of best benefit not only the horse people but the gamblers as well. And they're a huge part of this, because it's not only that's a sit out race, but it's also, and Jonathan, you've been a big proponent of pick 4s and pick 5s, and now all of a sudden, is it worth it to play a pick 4, pick 5 that ends on Belmont Stakes Day, in the Belmont Stakes, even if you have a strong opinion in that race? Because you got a 3 to 5 the race before, you got a 2 to 5, to start it off, and all of a sudden your opinion is diluted, because your pick 5, which normally back in the day on full fields, I remember Big Brown, the pick 6 paid $130,000, whatever it was. Now your pick 5 payment even if the longest shot comes into Belmont, your pick 5 is probably going to pay $1,300, $1,500 tops.
A lot less than that, Chad. A lot less than that. Because it's like a pick 3, first of all. Second of all, the problem is owners want to run in short fields. When I have a horse running, I hope 4 horses show up. But that's only good for the owners. It's not good for the game. It's not good for the players. You know, but listen, owners love this. They got all those grade 1 stakes with 5 horses in it. If I had a horse, I'd be tickled pink. You know, it would be great. It's great news, but it's not great news for the game.
No, and, you know, look, I mean, on the brighter side of things, though, you know, and we'll start with the race we're going to talk about here in the Belmont Stakes, that had 10 until all of a sudden 10 went down to 8. At least it's an interesting race, I would say, with the chance that it's a total walkover, and there's a chance it's a great race. So those are the 2 opinions that will be had, I think, in this race.
Nice analysis.
It is, you know, in a 1.5-mile race, everybody, you know, people that don't realize think, well, wow, you want to come from dead last because it's a 1.5 miles, but that's really not true. Most of the winners are forwardly placed, and you know, that's why the horse that won the Derby, I think, has 0 chance here, Rich Strike. I know he's doing well at Belmont. He's getting high grades. But do you want to bet a horse that was 80-1 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, and now tomorrow take him at 3-1? I don't think so. Not me.
Yeah, but those are rare. So, the chance, and you've done this long enough, John. You probably can't even remember the last time a horse had that kind of disparity and actually shocked everybody after upsetting the field, and then came back in the next race and won again as like almost a co-favorite.
No, Chad, did Mind That Bird run in the Belmont? Do you remember?
I remember he ran in the Preakness because Calvin Burrell took off to ride the filly.
Right.
So Rachel Alexandra beat him in the Preakness. I want to say he did run in the Belmont. I do think Mind That Bird ran in the Belmont. But, you know, the thing with Mind That Bird,
we remembered it.
Mind That Bird again had better credentials going. And look, I mean the thing about Rich Strike, and over the last few weeks, now that he's here, I've been able to kind of collect some more information about him. You know, the one thing that nobody's talked about with Rich Strike, the reason why he was an appealing claim for the connections was he was a bit of a cantankerous horse, and he wasn't mean. He was just very, very playful from an early age, from you know, being broken on the farm in Ocala by April Mayberry, to going to Joe Sharp, and he had a tendency to throw the rider often and run around loose around the Churchill Downs trackside track, and I think that was one of the reasons why the connections were okay being aggressive and running him for a tag, because he was very difficult. So when you find out more of this, you find out more of this information, and all of a sudden you find, well, he savaged the pony, yes, the Derby. You know, there are things about this horse that are interesting that, you know, maybe the light bulb is starting to come on. Maybe there is a chance that, you know, the Derby wasn't a fluke. Maybe he is more like Mind That Bird than he is like Summerbird. But at the end of the day, she's going to have to pass them all in this race, because the one thing I can tell you assuredly is when you win the Kentucky Derby from last, you're not going to change a thing, right? So he's going to come from last.
But the only difference is in the Derby there was a meltdown. They're not going to go those kind of actions.
Correct. No, this is what I'm saying. He's going to come from last.
Came back to him than that he can. In my opinion, it's more that the rest of the field backed up as much as he was moving forward. That's all.
Yes and no. I mean, the one thing you do give him credit for, and again, this is more reflective of the Derby than it is looking forward to the Belmont. But he did outfinish the other closers in Mo Donegal and Barbara Road, who will inevitably take money on Saturday in the Belmont Stakes as closers, and he was behind them and he did beat them. So, you know, you do give him the credit for that. But I agree, there was a pace meltdown. I don't think he hits the board in this race, and I know it's a small field. I don't think he hits the board, and I think the other thing that's not talked about enough, and you go back to Smarty Jones going for the Triple Crown. And everyone said to jockey Stuart Elliott, you should come early. You should come early, ride as much as you can, because Belmont Park's oval, the track, is 1.5 miles. It's a different track than any other track you'll ever ride at. And Sonny Leone is here, but he's not riding. He rides one horse on the first race on Saturday. That's it. And I think, when he tries to make that move, he's either going to wait too long or move too soon. And it's just not a good recipe for anybody, especially now he's got a target on his back. Where when he was in the Kentucky Derby, look, these jockeys, and we talk a lot about jockeys and stuff like that, these jockeys have absolutely no interest in letting Rich Strike and Sonny Leone beat them again in the Belmont. In the Derby, he drew in off the AE. They didn't watch any of his replays. He was a non-factor. He was 80-1. That should have been 800-1. And they totally forgot about him. They didn't know anything about him. Now, I guarantee you, all 7 of those other riders have studied the form, have watched the replay of the Derby at least a dozen times, and they will know at all times where Rich Strike is. And they will not let him up the inside like what happened in Churchill Downs. So if he's going to win this race, not only does he have to be as good or better than he was in the Derby, that not only does he have to overcome the lack of pace factor in the race, but he has to overcome the fact that he has a target square on his back right now. And oh, by the way, like you said, he's going to have to do it at 3-1 instead of 80-1. And it's a big ask. And look, they're going to talk him up, and everybody's going to be a believer in him, and everybody wants to believe the story. Everybody wants to believe the hype. It's what we do as America. We love that. Jeremy, he's like Jeremy Lin, the basketball player from the Knicks, Greg. Everybody loved Jeremy Lin until all of a sudden, after his 2 weeks of being a top player and he's on the Toronto Raptors, nobody's paying attention to Jeremy Lin. And I'm rooting for the connections, and I hope he runs well, and I hope he proves me wrong. But I agree with Jonathan. I don't think Rich Strike hits the board on Saturday.
All right, let's do the race, boys.
All right, so we just want to remind everybody that we're going to be handicapping 3 races, starting with the Belmont, and then the other 2 races on the same Belmont card, races 8 and races 10. That's going to be available only to our Patreon members at patreon.com/PrimeSN. And sorry that you guys missed out last week, because you could have just paid $5 for the month, and just by listening to our handicapping of last week's race, John, how much did now the horse paid off to win? We didn't pick the horse to win, but we said we need to find an exacta. What did the exacta pay? And you had the exacta.
Well, yeah, I had the exacta if you boxed all my horses, but I was between king the 7 and 8. I screwed up. I keyed the 7 instead of the 8, but the must use in that race was the horse that won at 40-1.
Yes.
So
that's what we said.
We were all around it, and if people were smart enough to put it together, there are times where you can't have it. You could have had it listening to us. That's it. Turn the page. People don't want to hear about it. Coulda, woulda, and shoulda. So let's begin with.
No, the people are going to hear about it, because they're going to know exactly why spending $5 a month is a bargain, because they're going to have the entire year paid for. So let's get started now with the free race, and that is the Belmont Stakes. We'll start with the one, We the People. And I remember Chad talking this horse up, then had the disappointing Arkansas Derby. But then, because I remembered how Chad had talked the horse up, had him on his early poll for the Derby, I played him in the Peter Pan, and also had him in the exact. It was a small payout, but still, it was an impressive win. He ran an 8 in that race. The only thing about We the People here, John, is he's 2-1. The last time, he's only raced 4 times. He ran an 11, and that was a high after his second race. He bounced to a 17. Now he's got an 8. I'm kind of thinking we're going to see the same thing. Maybe a bounce here. I don't want to play this horse at 2-1.
I don't either, but he has a big advantage. He is loose on the lead. He is the only speed in the race, and if the rain comes and the track is favoring speed, that will only help him. Not only that, the 8 he ran last time was on a wet track as well. I want to try to beat him because of the price, and because I know that he's not repeating. He's going to go backwards off the 8. And when you know a short price horse is going to react off of his last race, you certainly try to beat him. But he's got Flavian Pratt, who he had last time. We had actually the last 2 times. He could be tough in here, but I just can't take him at a short price.
Yeah, and the other thing, by the way, I did check the weather, and I don't know if it's changed, but I checked the weather, and they say right now it's supposed to be partly cloudy on Saturday. So hopefully that'll stay that way. All right, because we have 2 grass races to talk about, so I hope the weather stays that way.
That's
all
staying on, believe me.
Chad?
Because it's stake races.
Look, I mean, we talked about We the People before. I think Rudolph Brissett has done a wonderful job with this horse, and the one thing I can tell you from a trainer's perspective, from a horse person's perspective, you know when you have the nuts, and you don't look at the odds, and you don't look at the handicapper analysis and what Andy Sterling likes to complain about. You sit there and you know when you have a good one, and Rudolph Brissett's been telling everybody that will listen to him, almost to a fault. In fact, the owner, Elliot Walden of Windsor, used to yell at him about this, and maybe after Saturday I'll take it back. But he told everybody it's the best horse he's ever trained. Now, he had Justify, he had Life is Good, he had a lot of horses that people don't even know he had. He worked with Royal Delta, he worked with so many nice horses of Belmont along the way, Taurus, Strassemeyer, the list goes on and on. He loves this horse. He's loved this horse from day one. I think running back in the Arkansas Derby on the short rest was a mistake. They knew it. He didn't come close to the lead. He reacted off that, and he bounced to the moon. But the Peter Pan had everything his own way. Flavian Pratt is so good at getting horses out of the gate. He almost stole the race last year with Hot Rod Charlie, and that was, battling the entire length of the racetrack basically, in what was a phenomenal race last year. I think Flavian Pratt has no problem with post 1, gets out of the gate good, and he dictates and sets the pace and lulls them to sleep. And they can very possibly go a half mile here in 48, and he can be in front by 4. And it's just it's one of those things where if he's tough to beat. And you talk about the confidence and the belief that Rudolph Brissett has in this horse and what this horse means to his career. The Peter Pan was how long ago? It was about 4 weeks ago?
May 14th.
Okay.
3 weeks ago.
Rudolph Brissett has about 60 horses in training. He spent 3 days in Churchill Downs checking the other horses. The rest of the time, he's been at Belmont Park with this horse. There's 2 or 3 other horses here, but this is the reason he's been in New York. He has not left this horse aside from 3 days after the first race. He truly believes that this horse is a very, very special horse, and I just don't see this race setting up in any other way. Look, there are times when you look at a race and you say, oh, well, this horse looks like he's loose on paper, and then, it's a big field and somebody else sends. Jonathan, I don't see anybody else on paper that can send, even if they wanted to send. I don't see anybody else that even has the possibility of being, anywhere close through the first quarter, half mile of the race.
Well, I could tell you that the Ortiz brothers and Pletcher, they're going to send one of those. I just know what they're going to do.
Well, they can't send Mo Donegal because you would come out of the gate faster than Mo Donegal does.
They're going to send the filly. That's what I honestly believe. I could be wrong.
They can try.
They're going to try. You got a brother team, and you have the same trainer of both horses. They're not going to both take back. Somebody's got to be sacrificial here. Somebody has to go. Otherwise, the race is over. So,
right.
All right. So let's go with the 2 next. Skippy Long Stocking, a 20-1 long shot, Safi Joseph trained horse. This was an interesting long shot play in the Preakness based on his sheets. Had a 7 at the Wood, but then backed up to a 10 in the Preakness, John, running 5th. So what about as a long shot? Do you think Skippy Long Stocking might return back close to that 7?
No, I think the 7 that he ran 2 starts back at Aqueduct in the Wood is the end. I think he's going to need time. This race is close to the Preakness, and I think he's going to go backwards again. I think the 7 hurt him.
Chad?
I think that was a phony number in the Wood. I don't think Mo Donegal or Skippy Long Stocking are that good. I think that they are what they are. I've not liked what I've seen from him in training as far as his energy level and stuff like that since he's come to New York from Maryland, and I think he's up against it.
Okay, then comes the Philly Nest, the 3 horse at 8-1. So this is the only filly in the race. Ran a 7 at Keeneland in the Ashland win. 12 last time out at the Kentucky Oaks, finishing second to Secret Oath. John?
She has a shot. She's 8-1. I'm using her in my numbers. Again, I think she's going to try to go. I think she's going to try to put some pressure on We the People. I don't know if she'll be able to, but I just know the way these guys operate, and I would be surprised if she didn't go.
Chad?
I don't think she's fast enough to go. I can see them trying to send her out of the gate and get position, and she could, suck up second or third. I do like the fact that this filly was nominated to the Triple Crown from the beginning, and it does seem like this was their race in mind. They had never, ever had a thought about running in the Derby or the Preakness. It was the Belmont Stakes. For connections who have, won this race before with the filly and Rags to Riches, they know the kind of horse it takes to run in the Belmont. Todd Pletcher has all the success in the Belmont. I think he's won 4 or 5 of them. And I think that she does have a tactical advantage over others in the race. And look, I thought that she was going to regress off the big race in the Ashland. I think she did. You saw the 7 to the 12. That makes sense. She's gotten enough time in between races, and she trains just fine. She's a solid filly. She's built for this. Secret Oath didn't embarrass herself in the Preakness back in short rest. I think Ness can definitely hit the board. I don't think she's good enough to win, but I think she can hit the board.
By the way, Mine That Bird was second in the Preakness and third in the Belmont. Next up is Rich Strike, Kentucky Derby winner, who, by the way, is still yet to register a single-digit sheet number. Ran a 10 last time out at the Kentucky Derby. That was his best number, John.
Listen, the horse really, if you look at the sheet, hasn't done anything wrong this year. 15 1/4, 15 minus 13, and then a 10 last time out. The problem is, even if he happens to be fortunate enough to repeat that 10, it's not going to be good enough. And I don't think there's going to be value. I can't play a horse that was 80-1 and I missed the wedding and then show up for the funeral.
Yep, too late. Jad?
The only thing I'll say, the only outlier I'll say in Rich Strike, and we've talked about this already about him, but if the track does come up sloppy, he trained very, very well on a sloppy track this week at Belmont. So I will give him that. He moves up in my book if it's a sloppy track. Other than that, I don't think he hits the board.
The 5 is Creative Minister, a 6-1 shot. This is one of the closers of the race. The sheet line is pretty solid, John. 17, 16, 13, and 9. The 9 came when he finished third at the Preakness. So what about Creative Minister, as especially at 6-1, as one of the horses in the exotics?
6-1, you can keep him, Greg. He ran a 4-point new top last time out. He doesn't have any time from that race. He has no races as a 2-year-old, so there's no foundation. I wouldn't put this horse on a ticket at 6-1.
Chad?
I'll give him credit. He's the only horse to run on the Triple Crown, albeit it was an allowance race on Derby Day. But he is the only one that runs in all three, all on the Derby Day, Preakness Day, and Belmont Day. So I'll give him that. Look, I mean, I agree with you.
He should have run into. I didn't have obviously enough points.
No. He was a maiden. He was a maiden winner. Oh wait, so was Rich Strike. At the end of the day, I agree that he's supposed to take a step back, but he showed good energy all week long, and he's a horse again he'll be closer than some of the other horses, and for that reason, I can see him, 1, 2, 3. It is kind of a little bit of an anomaly because you would have thought off the 13 it was going to be tough to move forward off that in 2 weeks, and he did move forward to a 9. I know he's supposed to regress, but maybe he's the but horse that just keeps going and can hit the board again in this race and then kind of set up for where he'll be the buzz horse in the Peter Pan and get his head blown off by Epicenter.
All right, the 6 is Mo Donegal, the 5-2 shot, who had the unfortunate position of starting first in the Kentucky Derby, but finished a respectable 5th from that position. Fletcher, Ortiz Jr., 5-2. That's not what we want, but the sheet line was excellent going into the Derby, and unfortunately ran an 11 in that race. So what about Mo Donegal at 5-2, John?
Well, this is going to be my top selection here. The Derby was basically pretty cleanly run race. Not many horses had excuses. There were 2 or 3 horses that had trouble trips. This was one of them. If you go watch the start of the race, this horse had big trouble at the start. And if you cover the Derby, really, he went 13, 9, 7. Okay? Not only that, there's an interesting thing about this horse. He has 6 lifetime starts, and he's broken from post position 1 or post position 2 in almost all those races, with the exception of one race. Now,
well, that's because he also had he had the fake illness when he was post position 12 in Florida.
Yeah, he got 12 itis. He had 12 itis. He had 12 itis. Exactly. But I think drawing the 6 here is going to help him. Listen, this horse is moving forward. I can't say that about any other horse in the race. This horse is at least coming off of a non-effort in the Derby. He's moving forward. He has the 7 to go back to, and that's how I ended up on this horse.
Dad?
You don't like he needs pace to run into. He needs pace to run into. He's not going to get pace to run into. And unless Ness goes on a suicide mission, which she can and she won't, and she's not fast enough, Mo Donegal is more compromised than anybody else. Rich Strike at least can be a touch closer. Barber Road, they're trying. They breezed him out of the gate last week. Whatever. Mo Donegal needs to come from last. And he's just one of those clunker horses. Maybe he'll win the Belmont because, like, many people now have decided that it's just not a good 3-year-old crop, and he would be the ultimate cherry on top to win the Belmont. Because, to me, sheet number aside,
it says it's a good 3-year-old crop. Why? Because Rich Strike won the Derby?
He's just the horse.
Before the Derby, everybody was saying how good this crop was. What happened? Boy, everybody changes their mind in a hurry.
He is just a horse.
Okay, he's just a horse. Meanwhile, in the Remsen, by the way, they went 51 to the half, and he was able to close that day.
51 was fast, and the Demoiselle we won 53. that track was ridiculous that day. That other than Brad Cox's horse that almost set the track record in the mile race.
All right, the 7 is Golden Glider, one of the long shots in the race, coming off a 13, finishing second. Last time out to We the People, John.
Too slow. His best race is an 11. It's not going to get it done.
Dad?
I guaranteed he would make the Derby. At least he made one Triple Crown race. He was on our initial poll, and for that reason and that reason alone, he is a definite contender here at the Belmont. Look, he breezed well enough the other day. He came home in 23 and change, which I like to see, instead of kind of coming home in 25 and change like Skippy Longstocking there. But look, he's 7 lengths too slow to We the People, and I don't think in the 3 weeks since then he's found that 7 lengths. So I don't think he beats We the People. Maybe he can pick up a piece of the pie, but I don't think he can win the race.
The 8 is Barber Road, a 10-1 shot, and this is actually the horse I'm going to try to make money with. I'll also probably put him with the exacta with one of the favorites, like We the People, to see if I can make a little extra money there as well. Rosario on board for the first time. The sheet line actually went pretty good to start his career, to a 13 in January. Backed up just a little bit in his race at the Rebel, but then again went forward 13-11. So, hey, look, I can look at this sheet and say he's going to have his best career race. If he can get a 9 with Rosario on board, maybe that'll be good enough, John.
Yeah, if he runs a 9, but I don't think he's running a 9. He's not long enough. That's the problem. He's only 10-1. Chad's idea with the 7, who's 20-1, has the same number that the 8 does. So why wouldn't you bet the 7 if you were considering between the 7 and 8?
Chad?
I like. Chad?
No, he's ready to make his picks. Go ahead, Chad.
If Barber Road wins this race, then, and this is no offense to John Ortiz, because I think he's done a good job with this horse, and this was a $15,000 weanling purchase from a guy who used to be the CEO of Walmart, so he's used to, finding those bargain basement prices, right? Even though they're buying the Denver Broncos now. The thing is with this horse, if he wins, Joel Rosario should walk right to the Hall of Fame. Don't have to give a speech. Don't have to wait to be inducted. Go right to the Hall of Fame. Because for him to win this race, Joel Rosario, with the blinkers off, is going to have to give the greatest ride of his life, because the horse has shown no speed. Now, look, I give John Ortiz credit. He breezed him out of the gate last week, which I like, because he's shown no speed in his last 4 starts. Okay, and John Ortiz himself got on the horse, just like Rudolph Brissett has been breezing We the People. He knows the horse. He's from New York. He went to high school in Elmont High School right up the road. It would mean the world to him. It would mean more to him, I think, to win the Belmont Stakes, to the trainer John Ortiz, than any other trainer or owner or jockey in this race. That's how big of a deal it would be for him to win the Belmont. I don't think this will be the horse to get it done, but I applaud them for trying. And look, Ray Lou Gutierrez has had a great year. He's a good kid. He was a gym teacher major, right? They love saying that, kinesiologist major in college at Rochester. He's going to win several of these Triple Crown races along the years. Reaching out for Joel Rosario, that's like looking out for Mariano Rivera and the Yankees to try and get the job done. I applaud the connections for going to the hot hand. And like I said, if anybody can win this race on this horse, it's Joel Rosario. But it's a big ask.
What are they going to pave the roads over there, Chad?
Whatever they want.
No, pave the road where you're driving. It's like you're giving me dizzy.
I'm not even driving. I'm sitting still.
All right. Well, then smoke a cigarette.
Before we started.
All right.
I pulled over before we started.
Go ahead, John. Picks.
Shit, I like Mo Donegal. I'm going to use him with the one horse, We the People, the 3 Nest, and that's what I like. 6 over 1 and 3.
1 and 3. So you're just go heavy on the 2 favorites in an exact.
Oh, what can I tell you? I mean, sometimes you got to play what they give you. I'm not happy with the race, but that's the way I see it.
That's it. Go heavy with the 6 and the 1, and then hope the 3 comes in. Chad?
I'm going to go with We the People. I'll put Nest in second and Golden Glider in third.
All right, 1 with the 3 and 7. That's the Belmont Stakes. That one is for free. For everybody else, it's time to talk about the other 2 races on the card. If you are at patreon.com/PrimeSN member. And again, it's only $5 a month. Very cheap. And for the first time, Chad Summers joins us on our patreon.com page. So let's get started.
That's worth $5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.